right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. We are wrapping up the school year, but we still have a few more events before we get to those Christmas holidays. And December, really ever since we started Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, we have always featured big cat scientists, explorers, and researchers from around the world, filmmakers, and things like that. So this month is no exception. We've been already in Panama, looking at jaguars, North America with cougars, Africa in Kenya, talking about lions. So we're going to continue today with another really fun event. I'm really excited to have my friend Andrew Stein joining us today. He is a National Geographic explorer, and he has over 15 years experience working on human-carnivore conflict in East and Southern Africa. So he completed his PhD at the University of Massachusetts and then headed out to a field camp where he oversaw research on lions, leopards, cheetahs, African wild dogs, spotted hyenas in northern Botswana. In 2015, he founded CLAWS Conservancy. So that stands for Communities Living Among Wildlife Sustainably. It's a nonprofit organization established to provide innovative approaches to promote human-wildlife coexistence. So I'm going to bring Andrew in live with me right now. Hey, Andrew, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Joe. Always fun to do these events. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, it's great to have you with us, Andrew. We have a bunch of students in camera spots. We have more tuning in via YouTube. So I think we'll be pretty busy when the Q&A time comes. But for now, let's let you take over for a little bit. Take us into your amazing work in Botswana.
All right. Thank you once again. Thank you to all of you students and teachers that have signed up to hear about our work today. What I'm going to do is share my screen, show a presentation, talk through some of the work that I do, and then we will have a discussion. And I'd love to hear some of your questions or thoughts on the work. And I will get started now. So let me share my screen and start the slideshow. All right. So the title of my talk is My Journey to Saving African Lions.
Andrew, I'm just going to catch you quickly. We might have missed a button because it didn't load on our end.
Oh, okay.
No worries. With technology, sometimes it takes 2 goes to get it.
Yes.
Kick in.
Found it.
There we go. I see it loading now.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Are we together? Can you see it?
It looks good. We're good.
All right. So the title of my talk today is My Journey to Saving African Lions. And what I want to do is describe my journey, like how I got from growing up in the northeastern part of the United States to actually working in the field, studying lions in Africa. So I grew up in Massachusetts in a town called Worcester. And then I moved in my 20s to Africa. I spent time in South Africa, Namibia, Kenya, and Botswana. Now, when I was in 6th grade, this is what my class picture looked like. There's me in the front row, probably very similar to a lot of the class pictures that you take in your schools. But how did I get from there in the front row to standing on top of a Land Rover tracking lions? Currently, my work is in Botswana, which is the country in the southern part of Africa with the red square around it. Botswana is the size of Texas, and so it's a pretty big country, not as big as the United States, but still quite big. And it has around 2.5 million people, which is the size of the city of Houston, Texas. So if you spread out all those people from that one city across the size of land of Texas, it's actually pretty empty. There's a lot of areas in the country where you can drive and not see any people for hours. And my field work looks a lot like this. I live in field camps where wild animals move in and out of the camp sometimes. This was an elephant that we named Ahmed, who actually walked into our camp and would feed on the leaves of the trees and feed on some of the vegetation around our camp. This is the tent that I lived in. I lived here for 3 years. So rain or shine, I was staying in this tent, and it was actually quite comfortable to live there. This is what our kitchen looked like. So you can see the tea kettles on the back. So we had a little stovetop where we could cook, but we also had a cook in the camp that would make food for us, and she would prepare bread over the fire outside of the kitchen. This is what our shower looked like. So at night, sometimes I would go into the shower after a long day driving on dusty roads and washing off all the dirt. And you get there, and then all of a sudden, a hyena would run out. So you always had to be aware of what animals might be around, and you had to make noise so that you didn't surprise any animals. This is what our bathroom looked like in the toilet. So we didn't have a flushing toilet, but you can see on the front part of the toilet seat that somebody got curious and took a little nibble, and that was probably a hyena coming into camp. This is another picture of Ahmed, that elephant, and we knew him because he had a notch in his right ear, and if you look really closely, you can see that there's a bit of a notch in his ear, and so we could use that to identify him. And when he was in camp, it was actually pretty easygoing. He was pretty relaxed. Other elephants would sometimes get a little bit worried when they saw people, and so we would always have to give the elephants a lot of space and often stay in our tent if the elephants were there. Also, we had predators come into camp. And during the dry season, we had a bird bath that we would fill up for the birds to drink during the day. But at night, some of the predators would come in, and we would look at the tracks in the sand to see what animals were there. There were a series of leopard prints that came into the camp, and we thought, oh, this looks like the female leopard is back. We decided to set up a motion sensor camera at the bird bath, only to discover that there were 3 different female leopards that were coming to drink. And each one would come to the bird bath in a different way. And so when we set the camera and we looked at the photos, we could actually identify each individual leopard by its spots. Leopards have unique spot patterns, much like our fingerprints. So each one looks different. We also had snakes in camp. This was a big rock python that are fairly common in this area of Botswana. This was a really big one that I was helping to move out of the road so that nobody would run it over. But we also had poisonous snakes like black mambas, boomslangs, spitting cobras, and even puff adders come into camp, and we would have to remove them. Sometimes during the day, if everybody was doing work following animals, monkeys and baboons would come into camp and would break into the kitchen and steal some of our food. This is a vervet monkey that broke into my tent and took some chewing gum that I had. This was, I think, big red chewing gum, and they would chew it, but they didn't swallow it, and then they would spit it out and it would get stuck in their fur, just like sometimes if you get gum stuck in your hair and then you have to ask your parents to cut it out. So sometimes that happens to wild animals too. And then, of course, we had elephants. Now, northern Botswana is home to around 120,000 elephants. And this is about 40% of the world's elephant, or Africa's elephants, are found in this one region of the country. So there are lots and lots of elephants there. Also, because the Okavango Delta is a wetland with lots of water, we have hippos and crocodiles. So whenever we're crossing the water in a vehicle or in a boat, we always have to be careful to avoid the crocodiles and hippos. There's also Cape buffalo, which is one of the favorite prey of lions in our area, and they can move in herds of 100, 200, 300. There's even a herd of about 1,000 Cape buffalo that move through our area. Also, we have zebra, warthogs, impala antelope, beautiful kudu antelope, and baboons, as I mentioned earlier. Sometimes we have other visitors to camp, and you can see me in the top right, but this was a visit from Prince William and Prince Harry that came. They're well-known conservationists, and they come to Botswana occasionally, and they were interested in learning more about our work, so they came and stayed in our camp overnight. One of the challenges that we face in northern Botswana for conservation is the conflict between cattle and predators. So cattle, like this cow here, will move deep into the Okavango Delta, into the territories of lions, and then lions see them as food, and then they'll kill them. And so the owners of the cattle get very upset, of course, because these cattle are part of their livelihood and their income. So when lions kill cattle, people go after and kill the lions. So what can be done? How can we reduce conflict between people and lions? And how can we protect cattle from lion attacks so that people don't then attack lions? And what we do is we create a story around the individual lions that are causing a problem. So if people don't know each lion, sometimes they think all lions are the same and they behave all the same. But actually what we know, and anybody who has a pet dog or a cat in the classrooms will know, is that each animal has its own personality and behaviors. It's the same thing with lions. So each lion, some of them can be very shy. Some of them can be a bit aggressive. Some of them are very curious. Some of them attack livestock and some of them don't. So if we can share with the farmers which animals are likely to attack cattle, then we can use different management techniques to reduce conflict and actually protect cattle and lions. So we started a program called Pride in Our Prides. Now, as most of you know, lions live in groups called prides, made up of related females, including mothers and daughters and sisters and aunts and grandmothers. And those females raise the cubs. And then there are males that live in coalitions that hold the territories and protect those prides from other lions coming in. This is part of our research team, and we would go out to study the lions. One way in which we would study them is to put a satellite tracking collar on a lion. So we would have to dart the lion while it's sleeping. We get out of the vehicle, we take blood samples, we measure the animal, and then we put this tracking device on it. Much like the GPS that you use in your car to see your directions and where you go, we can use a GPS to follow lions once the collar is on. The tricky thing with darting lions, of course, because they're social, is that when one lion is asleep, that means the other lions are awake. We do not dart an entire pride. So sometimes we can be working with one sleeping lion, and there could be 10 other lions awake, walking around, curious, trying to see what happened to their family member. And then after we're done with our procedure, the lion wakes up and returns to their family. This is a male lion that we're putting a collar on here. Male lions are twice the size of females. The males can weigh up to 500 pounds. Females will weigh a little over 200 pounds. When we're looking at the lions, we try to understand how old they are. And one way to do that is to look at their teeth. If the teeth are sharp and have a lighter color, that means that they're younger. And this lion is probably 3 to 4 years old. It still has white tips on her teeth, and the tips of the teeth are very, very sharp. So that tells me that she's an adult, but she's still quite young. We also inspect the claws. Now, lions, just like your house cat, have semi-retractable claws. So when they're walking, the claws are protected by a sheath. But when they're running and jump on their prey, they can force their claws out, and those claws can be used to pull down their prey. And so when we're inspecting the lions while they're sleeping, we can actually push on their toe very gently, and then the claws come out, and we can see if those claws are broken or whether they're sharp and healthy. Once the tracking collar is on the lions, we look at the map in the computer, and then once we get close, we use a tracking device, a receiver, to find the exact location. And so we use Land Rovers and drive off-road to go and find them. And this is me on the back of a Land Rover trying to listen to signals from the tracking collar. Sometimes it doesn't go as planned, and especially in the Okavango Delta, we have to cross a lot of rivers, and sometimes we get stuck. So this was a day we were driving to try to follow African wild dogs, and we didn't find the right path, and the vehicle went underwater and the engine cut off. So we had to pull the vehicle out. Then we had to do some things to help fix the vehicle, and then it was running, and we were able to cross the river and find the dogs. But you can't call AAA when you're out in the field. Once we find the lions, we try to understand how big the group is and what the dynamics are. The prides are growing, so they have cubs. We want to know how many cubs are there, which females the cubs belong to. And then as we see them over the days and weeks and months ahead, we want to make sure that those cubs are surviving well, that they're feeding well. We want to know what those lions are, what their main prey is, whether they're eating cattle or whether they're feeding on zebra and buffalo and giraffe and other wild prey. Here's a picture of a pride. You can see the female in the back with the tracking collar. And there are cubs of 3 different females here. The one staring at the camera is the youngest. Then the one to the right is a little bit older. And then the one in front is in between age. So in the prides, what's interesting is that multiple females can have cubs at different times, and they raise them together and they protect them together. In fact, female lions will even nurse each other's cubs, which is very different from other social species. So here's one of our lions that we've collared. And sometimes while we're tracking, we find the lion as she's moving towards us, and we turn the engine off of the vehicle, but you can see how scary it is when they're walking and then they set their focus on you. Here she is. She sees me in the driver's seat. And she pauses for a minute just to see if it's safe. And then she continues to move on. But that split second when she looks at you right in the eyes can be kind of a scary thing, even when you're in a vehicle. But you can see she's a beautiful, beautiful female. When we put the tracking collars on the lions, we put the information directly into an alert system. So all of these red circles are villages or cattle posts where people live in our study area. When a lion goes within one of these red circles, then an alert goes directly to that farmer that lives in that area to let them know that a lion is coming. And so that farmer can gather their cattle, put them in a protective enclosure, and keep them safe for the night so that the lions can't attack. So when people receive these alerts on their cell phones, this is what they look like. The farmers in our area are asked to name each individual lion. So you can see on the right what the messages say. Lion Mayenga is approaching cattle post 1 at a distance of 4 kilometers. Ditonga, who is a male lion, is approaching cattle post 1. Secharo is approaching cattle post 1. Wetu is approaching Gunatsocha village. So you can see in each of the messages, people from those specific locations can actually protect their cattle. And if their cattle are safe, there's no reason to try to kill the lions. Another thing that we've started is to resurrect traditional herding practices. Throughout history, people have herded their cattle. They walk with them. They move from place to place, bringing cattle to areas that have good food for the cattle to eat and water. And when people are around, the lions stay away. But what's happened recently is that many of the people that used to do the herding, often herd boys that were 10, 11, 12 years old, maybe even the age of some of you in your classrooms, were sent out to walk with the cattle and chase lions away from the cattle. Many of those children are now in school, much like you. And so many of the adults in the village did not want to do the job of herding cattle because they saw it as the job of herd boys. But we've done a lot of training with many of the adults in the village. And we talked about how using cattle and walking with the cattle can actually protect them from lions and improve the environment by having the cattle graze an area, then leave their dung as fertilizer, and it actually restores the health of the environment. People in the training course got certificates, and then we started a herding program. And you can see the cattle here, and the herders are walking with them. And then to the right, you can see an enclosure that we put the cattle in every night, and that keeps them safe from the lions. Our herders actually are very close with the cattle, and they take care of them. When the cattle get sick, the herders give them medicine. When there are lions nearby, the herders will make noise and chase the lions away. And it's actually worked very well. We haven't had a single cow be attacked by a lion in over 3 years as part of the program. So what's the result? Lions are recovering. In the early years of our project, there were only about 20 to 25 lions in our area. Now we have close to 50 lions, and the prides are growing. So many of the prides that we have now have young cubs. We know of at least 2 females that are heavily pregnant that are about to give birth in the next month or two, maybe around Christmas. And so we're very optimistic that people and lions can live together. So as part of our work, we are supported by National Geographic's Big Cats Initiative, Lion Recovery Fund, WWF, Tusk Trust, Conservation International, and many other organizations. We have a Facebook page and a website and an Instagram page for any of your classrooms that want to follow along with our work. Please do have a look at any of our social media or website. So with that, I'm going to end the presentation, and I'll stop sharing my screen so that we can have our discussion.
All right. Sounds good, Andrew. Thank you so much for that great presentation. I loved how you shared your story, how you went from, a kid in his class picture to being out in amazing places in Africa, like Kenya and Botswana, and working with these amazing predators. Very, very cool.
Yeah, to be honest, when I was 10, 12, 15, 16, I had no idea that I would ever get to Africa. Nobody in my family had ever gone to Africa. I had never met anybody who had gone to Africa. So the idea that I could not only visit, but do work and contribute and actually do my dream job of conserving big cats in Africa, I never would have imagined it. So you never know where life will take you and where you can end up if you're persistent and you keep to your goals.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to get to some Q&A action in just a moment, Andrew. But before we do, while you were presenting, I pulled together a Kahoot quiz for the classrooms.
All right.
So we can find out how well they're paying attention, see who has their lion knowledge all lined up. So if you want to join, you can go to kahoot.it, and then it's going to ask you for the PIN number 283 4383 is our PIN number for today. If you have one-to-one technology, maybe you have Chromebooks, maybe you have a tablet, you can do this at your seat. If not, no big deal. Your teacher could put this up on the front board and you could shout out your answers to him or her. If you're joining from home, use a tablet or a mobile phone and scan that QR code and it will bring you in as well. You can see we've got lots of animal names here coming in. Andrew, yesterday was kind of funny. We had Ricardo Morno join us and he was talking about his jaguar work that he does. And a student with the name Bright Jaguar won the Kahoot yesterday, which was pretty cool.
Wow, nice.
Yeah. So these are all auto-generated names, but I saw Magic Cat. I saw another cat one in there somewhere. There's a Groovy Bobcat. Let's see if any lions pop in to the event. So while we're waiting for a few more students to join, I do have some questions in the chat. We have a classroom joining us in Alaska. And Andrew, they'd really like to know what inspired you to study wild animals?
Well, I think like most of you, I grew up and I loved animals. I read stories about animals. I watched documentaries about animals. And so something about nature and animals specifically really captured my imagination. All the different sizes and shapes of animals, the different ways in which they behave, the different colors, how each of them contributes to the functioning of the natural world and in their own individual niche. And so I I just became completely captured by the idea of animals. And I started volunteering at the zoo when I was about 13 or 14, just learning about exotic animals. And then when I went to college and studied zoology, I realized this is the path for me. This is a way that I can be involved directly in saving and conserving animals. And it just kind of it went from there.
All right. Very cool. Well, while we were answering that question, I saw many more cats ranging from
Yes.
leopards to cheetahs to the kind lion. So we'll see if one of our big cat names is the one who comes on top today. I'm going to get our quiz started. We still have students trickling in, but we should get going because we want a nice long Q&A time. So here we go. We have a 3-second count in and then we are off. 20 seconds for each question. The quicker you get your right answer in, the more points you're going to get. So here we go. Question 1. Where does Andrew do most of his work with CLAWS? Was it in Kenya, Botswana, South Africa, or Tanzania? So where is Andrew doing most of his work with CLAWS? Kenya, Botswana, South Africa, or Tanzania? We've got about 5 seconds to get your answer locked in. All right. Good job, crew. It is Botswana. I'm sure Andrew's been to most of these other countries, but most of the work he's doing now is in Botswana. And I thought that was pretty cool statistic, Andrew, that you can take that city in Texas, Houston, and spread it out over the whole country. So there is lots of wild space still available.
Yes. And you compare it to some of the other parts of Africa and you realize Botswana has a really great chance of maintaining wildlife and wild spaces because the human population is so low and they've been committed to wildlife conservation.
Yep. So the Agent B is in first place, but if I look down at number 3, I see the bright cat. So let's see what happens as we continue. True and false. You can identify individual leopards by their spots. Is that true or is that false? If you look at the spot pattern of a leopard, you can identify individuals. All right. Overwhelmingly, we went with true. Very, very cool. Good job, crew.
Well done.
The green iguana has snagged that top spot. So let's see what happens. Botswana is home to about blank % of Africa's elephants. Did Andrew tell us it was 15%? Was it 25%? Was it 40%? Or was it 60%? Lots of elephants in Botswana. What percentage of Africa's elephants? 15, 25, 40, or 60? Okay, we learned today it's 40%. What did that do to our leaderboard? Ooh, green iguana doesn't want to let go. True or false coming your way? Lions don't see people's cattle as a source of food. Is that true or is that false? That lions don't see cattle as a source of food. True or false? All right, we know that is false. If cattle strays out into areas where lions are, lions will see them as a source of food, and we know that leads to a lot of conflict with the local community and lions. The honest puffin has grabbed that top spot. Here we go. A group of lions is called a pride, a crash, a flock, or a school. Group of lions. Is it a pride, a crash, a flock, or a school? Got halfway there to get your answer in. And we have one more question to wrap up our Kahoot for today. All right. Good job, crew. Green iguana back in that top spot. Let's see if we get a sneaky cat getting up there in the end. So you can tell how old a lion is by looking at its teeth. Is that true or is that false?
Great picture.
Yeah. You can tell how old a lion is by looking at its teeth. True or false? All right. That is true. Maybe not the exact age, but you can get a good approximation for how long that lion has been around. Let's take a look at our podium. In third place, the legend otter. In second place, we have the smart piranha. First place, what's going to happen? How are we ending this off? The green iguana held on. All right. Thanks, crew. Always fun to play a little Kahoot. Let's get into some Q&A action now. If you are joining us via YouTube, use that chat sidebar like our class in Alaska already has. If you're in a camera spot, we are coming your way now. So let's see. Let's start off. Let's go to Miss McIntosh has some grade 6s hanging out in Brampton, Ontario. So I'm going to bring them in first. 6A and 6B, how are we doing today?
All right.
We're ready for you.
Hi, my name is Osna, and my question is, did you ever experience an animal come inside your tent while you were asleep?
Not a big dangerous one. I've had mice get in my tent and I don't like it very much, but yeah, I have had snakes. I actually have had snakes, but no lions or leopards or anything like that. Yeah. Scorpions too. I've had scorpions in the tent.
You got to shake your shoes out in the morning.
Yes. Next question.
My name is Kirtaj, and my question is, are lions a descendant of saber-toothed tigers?
Ooh, are lions descendants of saber-toothed tigers? I don't believe that they're. I would have to look that up actually to be sure, but I think that the lineage of saber-toothed cats and lions diverged early on, so they're not direct descendants, but I think that their ancestors were cousins. Yeah.
All right. We will come back your way, 6A and 6B, I promise. So keep those questions on deck for us. I want to give a shout out. We have a couple classrooms and camera spots, but their mics didn't connect today. So I want to give a shout out to Miss Moffat's crew who are joining us, 5-6s. You can put your questions in the private chat. And then Miss Evans' crew in Oregon is joining us today. Looks like some 5-6s as well. So if you put your questions in the chat, I will make sure that we work those in from the private chat. Let's grab another classroom here. Miss Madero's crew. They are grade 4s in Oakville. Let's see if we can get them in here. Hey, grade 4s, how are we doing? All right. So, any lion questions in that grade 4 class?
No, Dylan has a question. You said that like lions, you can tell how old they are by looking at their teeth. How do you look at their teeth safely with like to see how old they are?
Great question. So in order to get close enough and to see their teeth, like in the photograph, we have to dart them, and we have to give them a drug that has them sleep for about 1 hour. So we have a veterinarian that we work with. We drive up alongside the lion. We shoot a little dart, goes in, and then the lion falls asleep in about 10 minutes. That lion sleeps for almost an hour. And while he or she is sleeping, we can get out of the vehicle and then look in his or her mouth to look at her teeth. But that's the only safe way to do it. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to see those teeth that close without them being sleeping. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for the question.
Behind with a question. Looks like it.
Yes, we have one more. Great course of okay. What are lions scared of?
What are lions scared of? Great question. You know, when you see lions out in the wild, they're not really scared of much. They even sleep over 20 hours a day. So you might sleep 8 hours a day. A lion is sleeping 20 hours a day. Why? Because they feel safe. They live in social groups, so they can protect each other from bigger threats. The biggest threat to lions, and the thing that they're most afraid of, is people. So when people are nearby, then lions usually run away. Yeah. So another thing that lions are sometimes afraid of in our area, when they're swimming across a river, they're looking out for crocodiles, because the crocodile can come up and snatch one, especially the younger ones. So they have to be very, very careful. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. That's grade 4. It's great questions. Okay. We are going to grab Miss Evans' class in Oregon. Sent me a couple in the private chat. Her class wants to know, because you have studied different species of big cats, why lions did you settle on, and how many are you currently tracking?
So I'm studying lions right now because they were the species that were at the center of the conflict that was happening in this area. Lions are big and they can take full-grown cattle versus cheetahs, leopards that usually will only be able to attack something like a calf that's like 6 or 7 months old. So the lion population is bigger, and they were attacking those cattle. And so people were using poison to kill the lions. And because they were using poison specifically for lions, they were killing lions, but also endangered vultures, hyenas, and other scavengers. So in order to help protect this ecosystem and remove poison from that ecosystem, we had to target lions for our study and our interaction with the community. I've studied lions in the past, but to be honest, the main species I like to study are leopards. And so I've spent most of my career studying leopards, and I even led the international effort to understand the global status of leopards across Africa and Asia. We just submitted our international study last week that will be published early next year. So I'm known in my field primarily for leopards, but I also work on lions.
All right. And how many lions are you tracking right now?
Yes, we are tracking 9 lions in different prides and coalitions. So I believe that represents about 25 different individuals or different individuals in those groups.
Okay, very cool. We're going to go to Ohio now. Our grade 5s have been waiting patiently. There they are. Hey, 5th graders. All right, let's grab that microphone. We'll take a couple questions.
All right. You want to go first? Go ahead.
How long do lions live?
Ooh, great question. So lions, depending on where they are, their lifespan can change. So if they're in a protected area or a national park where the threats are very little, some of the lions can live. I worked for a project where we had a female that was 18 years old and still having cubs, and they can live a little bit older. Males typically don't live as long, and that's because they are the territory holders. And so when new male lions come in and want to take over a territory, they're more likely to fight. And when they fight, they can cause injuries. The territorial males might get pushed out. And so then they have a rougher time. So usually the males don't live past like 11, 12 years old. Some of them can get older in certain circumstances, but a lot of times the females can live a lot longer.
Thank you. All right, Sabrin, you were next.
How fast can they run?
Lions are very fast. They can run, 35 miles an hour or so, chasing down their prey. A lot of times the prey can run a little bit faster. So the lions, in order to get their prey, they got to stalk really close. And then they have that burst at the end to try to make up that ground before their prey can really take off. But yeah, they can run very fast.
All right, we're going to try and swing back your way shortly, grade 5s. We need to visit Miss Quigley's crew. I believe there's some grade 6, 7s here in Canada. There we go. Oh, I think I know we tried exiting, coming back in, but I don't think that kicked the mic in, Mrs. Quigley. So if you want to send the question in the private chat, you should see a private chat option either down at the bottom or over on the right. And you can type your question in there. While we wait for that question to come in, let's see if there's one hiding for us on YouTube. Oh, we just had that one about how many years do lions live. This is always a good one. Andrew, what advice would you give to someone who might want to get into biology, or maybe big cat biology in particular?
So the big thing is to be persistent, follow opportunities, seek opportunities. When I was around the age of many of you in your classrooms, I didn't know what to do. I knew that I was interested in animals. I knew I didn't want to be a vet, but what does that mean? And luckily there was like a local zoo nearby, and I volunteered a few days a week. Most of that was not glamorous. It was, cleaning up the cages and preparing food for the animals, but it gave me an opportunity to get to know animals a little bit better, understand how to handle certain animals. And then when I went to college, I studied zoology, and that degree allowed me to take classes, different types of classes in the sciences. So I realized that I was interested in wildlife management as opposed to botany or invertebrate zoology, stuff like that. So some people might be more interested in bugs and insects. Some people might be interested in microbiology, little microscopic organisms that are really, really fascinating. So taking all those different classes, I got to understand what I really wanted to do. And then having the opportunity to do study abroad and actually get into the field. But there actually, now that looking back, there are volunteer opportunities, doing bird watching, volunteering for small organizations, where you live. There are opportunities to do things and just get an understanding of where your interest really lies. With big cats, the thing that really brought me back to Africa after study abroad was reading a lot. I read everything I could get my hands on. Every scientific paper that existed on leopards at the time, I read it. I took notes. I designed little projects that I thought would be interesting. And then I found people that believed in me enough to support me to get those projects started. And then volunteering. So getting opportunities to work with people that are really great biologists in the field. And then once you're there, that gives you opportunities to meet other people, learn about other opportunities, start to develop your own ideas and come up with your own projects.
All right. So I'm going to grab a question here from the chat, but to our camera classes, we are getting close to our endpoint for today. So if you have one more question on deck, we'll try and do a lightning round and squeeze in a couple more questions in a couple minutes. So, but Ms. Quigley's crew, who we just had on camera, they want to know about those manes. What is the deal with the manes, just on the males, but not the females?
What is the deal? So manes are a really interesting development in lions, right? We don't see them on leopards or jaguars or tigers or other big cats. So why does a male lion have a mane? Well, there are multiple evolutionary functions for the mane. The first one, if you think about a lion fighting and they're face to face and they're swinging and their claws are coming out and they're hitting, the mane acts as sort of like a pillow that absorbs some of that. And even with the scratching claws, it might pull out some of the fur in the mane, but it doesn't scratch the skin. So it actually protects them in a fight. Another thing that the mane can do is it gives the females an idea of how strong that male is. So as male lions grow, when they get 2 years old, they start to get like a wispy mane, and then they get to 3 years old, it starts to fill in. 4, 5 years old, it's a full mane, and it starts to go from like this blonde sort of peach fuzz to a darker brown to even black. And when a female sees a male lion with a black mane, it tells her he's strong, he's fit, he can protect my cubs. Because when they get into fights, if some of the fur gets ripped out, it grows back blonde again. And so if a male lion is in a fight and loses a fight and all that mane is ripped out, then it grows back light colored. It takes a while for it to get dark again. So if a female sees one with a dark mane, she says, okay, this is going to be a good provider and he's going to help protect me. He's going to be able to fight off those males that have a light mane, showing they're not as fit or as strong.
Okay, very cool. So here we go. Let's squeeze in a couple questions in a couple minutes. So quick questions. Ohio, do you have one more for us?
Yes.
What's the most interesting fact you know about lions?
To me, lions are really strange, right? I mean, we're familiar with them. We see them in pictures and movies and stuff, but they're weird. They're weird cats. Cats are not social, right? Normally you see a picture of a tiger, it's by itself. You see a snow leopard, it's often by itself. Lions are social. They hang out with each other. But the way they do it is weird. Like when you look at a wolf pack or a wild dog pack, they have a dominant male and female that have their pups. When they make a kill, they bring the pups in to eat first, and all the adults stand around the side and they bark and protect their babies from attack while the babies get to feed first. Lions are the opposite. So what happens is they make a kill, and maybe the females make the kill and the cubs start to feed, and then the male comes in and he chases everybody away, and then he feeds by himself, and the cubs come up and the male growls and chases the cub. So they're social, but once food is on the table, they don't like each other very much, and they'll even fight for every scrap. So I think that that's one of the interesting things to me, is that they are social, but there's a part of them, their behavior, their biology, they're still a cat underneath everything, and they don't want to share their food.
All right. Great questions from our 5th graders. Thanks, Ohio.
Thank you.
Okay. Grade 4s. Do you have another question for us?
Melody has a question. Go ahead, Melody. Go stand in front of the camera.
All right, here comes someone.
Are male lions' teeth sharper than female lions' teeth?
No, I think their teeth are generally about as sharp as each other. I mean, they use them for similar things, right? Catching their prey and feeding. So the wear and tear that happens on their teeth is typically like about the same. Yeah.
All right. Thanks,
Thank
grade
you.
4s. And to finish us off here, Andrew, HJC wants to know how many languages you speak. And our crew in Oregon want to know, will you find your way back to leopards?
So I speak one language fluently, but I do speak a little bit of Kiswahili from my time in Kenya. And then I do know how to give greetings in Setswana. So like a very little bit of Setswana, pretty good with Kiswahili, and then I speak English very well.
All right. What about those leopards? Are you going to find your way back at some stage?
I hope so. I have a proposal in now for a scent marking study. So I'm talking to potential donors, which could be really, really fun. So, but aside from the global status update that I've been working on with all of my colleagues from around leopard range, I think I'll get there probably pretty soon.
All right. Well, I want to start off with a huge thank you to our camera classes and our YouTube crew. Thank you for sending in those amazing questions. Thank you for playing Kahoot with us. It's always fun when there's a nice big group playing along. And then Andrew, we love stealing your time for events, whether you're home or sometimes in Botswana. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I always, like I said, I love sharing my enthusiasm and passion for the big cats, and especially getting those questions from all those curious students. It shows you really care and you love the big cats as much as I do.
All right. A lot of our classes had to duck out for recess, but we still have a couple hiding back there. So you guys want to give a big goodbye and thank you for signing off for today. Everyone.